everyone. So, welcome to the new video. Today I am making a consolidated video till now that I have made of AWS UI walkthrough. You'll get in one video about IAM Identity Center Route 53 EKS. So, without further ado, let's start. Today we will see about important resources in AWS. So this is VPC, Virtual Private Cloud, which we can see that it has been assigned the CIDR range. So 16 subnet mask means 32 minus 16 remains 16 means two places, two digit can be filled. These are the subnets created inside US East 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, 1E, 1F. These are availability zones. 6 subnets created inside the availability zone to make it highly available. And each subnet will have this range, IP address range within the range of VPC CIDR. So you can see that only 2 bits will change of last and rest will be same as VPC. Then the subnets are attached with a route table, and the route table has two routes, which has local means each subnet resources can communicate with each other, and in end the route table is assigned with internet gateway means these subnets are public. So we can see that all these are public subnet, but if we want to create a private subnet also in a VPC, we can create a private subnet, but in that case we need to create one more route table which will not have the entry of internet gateway. In this way we'll restrict the access of internet to that particular subnet resources, and in that way that subnet will be considered as private subnet. So that's all. Let's see the entry in the route table. You can see one is internet gateway and this is the local one to access the resource inside that public subnets, and this is the internet gateway which is attached to the VPC ID which is created. So if we search, we see that there are two services, IAM and IAM Identity Center. What is the difference between the two? So let me search. So whenever we search something in AWS, it will give us what the definition, the little short description. So IAM is to manage the access to AWS resources, and the top features are groups, users, role, policy, and access analyzer. In IAM Identity Center, basically it is used to manage workflows user to multiple AWS accounts and cloud applications. So basically, when we have multiple accounts, then we can handle it through IAM Identity Center. But in IAM, we cannot handle or manage multiple AWS account. It is for the specific account. If we create any group, user, role in a specific account, it will be present in that account. We cannot find that thing or that group, user, role in another account. So it is specific to a specific AWS account. If I open it, there is one more difference that you will see. If I'm opening IAM service, then you will see that there is a global sign over here. While if I'm opening IAM Identity Center, then you can see that there is a particular region which is being pointed. Why is it so? Because IAM Identity Center is hosted in a particular region, but it can manage multiple AWS account through that region. What we can do, we can configure a identity provider, means if we have active directory or if we are maintaining any active directory on any identity provider, we can connect that identity provider or we can create user and group directly. So if we have created any user or group in directly in IAM Identity Center or the user is present, then that user, we can assign access to multiple AWS account of that user. We don't have to create user and again for each AWS account. But in IAM, if I open IAM, you will see that there is a particular AWS account which gets open. Means if you create any user, any roles, any policies for for any for in an IAM, identity access management, it will not be present in any other AWS account. You need to create it. If suppose you are granting access, or if you have created a IAM user in AWS account A, and if you want to create or use that user or give any specific access to that user in AWS account B, you again have to create the IAM user and then grant the access. Okay. Now we have roles, we have policies, we have IAM user, we have groups, we have identity provider, account settings, root access, and temporary delegation request. But the main thing remains the same, that it will check for particular AWS account. Okay, it will remain in particular AWS account. So these are the roles which can be attached to a specific user if we want. Okay, so we can grant so the roles are created basically with the policies. These policies are like cloud formation stack sets, or if we search other policies also, these are all types AWS managed or something. So this is the policy present in this particular role. The trust relationship, basically we have to trust the user, we have to build the trust. So we gave that this service principal can perform this action, it can assume the role, this particular anybody who's assuming or who is using this role can get this action. They can you do perform an action on cloud formation service. We can use tags, we can use last access. If we see the if we see policies, we can see that these are the IAM policies. So what are the permissions given, that this service is access level is list and read only, EC2 list and read, EFS list and read. Accordingly, how many entities are attached or anything, policy version, last access. So versions can be created of policy, like the changes which are done. So if we go and access particular cloud formation, then the entity attached, that role should get be able to see that we saw in roles, right? So this was the one. Let me see the entities attached. No, there are no. Okay, full. Again, I will search for cloud formation. So if I see this, entities attached, okay, this is the read only access. I think I need to search for this particular role, or what you say, the particular policy, cloud formation stack sets. So I think cloud formation, I think this is the one. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, see the entity, that role that we were seeing. So basically this is the this is the difference between policies and roles. And IAM user is basically you will create a particular user. If you want to grant the access, you can attach directly the policies, or you can create a trust of roles. Okay, that user can assume that role. IAM user, this is a group in which multiple users can be added. These are the identity provider. So I think it is basically the same AWS IAM Identity Center. It will redirect to. So yeah, it's opening the same thing, which is then the root access manager. So access analyzer is basically if you want to analyze what are the unused access, analyzes a credential report, which for rotating the credential service control principle. These are SCPs, resource control policies. So this is basically IAM and identities. IAM Identity Center is something which is not set up, but we can set up with an existing identity provider, and we can manage these things that we are doing in IAM, but for multiple AWS accounts. So I hope things are a bit clear. What is the difference between the two services? So let's talk about Amazon EKS Elastic Kubernetes Service today. So if we have to create a cluster, we'll search for EKS and we'll get it. Elastic, the most trusted way to run, start, and scale Kubernetes. So if we have to create a cluster, we'll click on create cluster, and there are two options. So quick configuration with EKS auto mode and custom configuration. So EK's auto mode is like you don't have to give much inputs here, but it will use the default settings and all for the production grade. But I would recommend go for custom configuration so that we can change the default settings, and according to our requirement we can create the cluster. So we use, and EK's auto mode is basically when the new pods will be created accordingly to like EKS will automate the compute, storage, and networking. So we can choose it as yes. We can choose cluster name as whatever cluster name we want to give. Then the most important part is cluster IAM role. So when once you are creating for the first time, this role might not be present, but it's important to add the Amazon EKS auto cluster role, or you can if it's not present, create new role for it. So in cluster basically EKS auto cluster role is basically so that our control plane, because we are not managing control plane in AWS, it is managed by AWS itself. So control plane has the access to all the resources. That's why this IAM role should be there. The Kubernetes version that we are using, you can change it. The standard support we'll choose. We can also choose the control plane scaling tier, and accordingly the auto. So these are the built-in node pools, the node pools that will get created. So by default it is using journal purpose and system, but we can change. And for the node IAM roles, it is very important to attach EKS node role. So it will have three types of things here. It will have EKS worker node policy attached. It will have EKS CNI for container for networking part, and it will have ECR to fetch the images. So three policies will be attached to this role. And then we'll allow cluster administration. EKS we'll choose it as yes, and we'll do next. We'll have to choose the networking part, the VPC, subnet, security groups. Then next we need to give the cloud observability part if we want to configure. Add-ons are basically few add-ons like core DNS, proxy, and EBS CSI driver. That is important to be included, and accordingly we can like add on according to our needs. And after selecting the add-on, it will try to configure it, and then it next, basically after next it will just review and create it. So this is the way how we can create the EKS cluster. So today we'll see about Route 53. So as you can see, that Route 53 means scalable DNS and domain name registration, which means that what is DNS, domain name system? So DNS is basically we cannot remember IP address on which our application is hosted. So whenever we have to search our application, we have to type IP address. That we cannot do. But domain name are simpler to type and remember, and we have DNS resolver that will, when we type domain name, like we type www.google.com or google.com, so it resolves that domain name to the particular IP address, and then our request is forwarded to that service. So basically, Route 53 is a service in AWS which helps in domain. It helps in various ways in AWS. First of all, it helps in DNS management. Like we create a record and C name. So a record is when we just give the domain name, and that domain name, whenever a request come to that domain name, the request will be directed to a IP address. But CNAME is when the domain name is given, but that domain, that request will go to load balancer URL, and then that load balancer URL will go, request will go to pod. So in that case, we need to create a CNAME. So basically, when our domain name is not resolved to directly an IP address but to another domain, then we give CNAME. So that we create the hosted zone, so that our how whenever the DNS request will come, then how it should know where the request should go. It helps in availability monitoring, means that it helps in checking whether the particular endpoint or that URL is healthy or not. We can configure multiple endpoints to check that whether if the URL is not healthy, then where the request should be diverted to. So failover routing. Traffic management is also like that. We have a weighted traffic management in order to whenever so the request should go to this particular target group and this particular according to the weight. Domain registration is if we want to buy or we want to get a particular domain name, we can get it registered through Route 53. So this is the use of Route 53, and in AWS, why is it basically used? So if we go in, there are hosted zone, create hosted zone. So you can see that we have to give the domain name, but the domain name should be already existing. There are two ways: public hosted zone and private hosted zone. So once you click on provide the details and everything, public hosted zone, and suppose I'm giving example.com, then if we click on hosted zone, then it will automatically creates the A, and the public hosted zone means if you want to route the traffic to on the internet, if you want that your zone or this domain should be accessible on internet, or if it should be routed within Amazon VPC, then we need to choose that. Once we are clicking on okay, reserved by AWS, so we need to give, I'm just trying if I'm giving something else, let me see if it will allow me or not. Yeah, so you can see that there are already two type of NS and SOA is created. We can, two records are already created, and we can accordingly create record for it. Like if we want to route it to A type, or you can create CNAME type, TXT type. So like this we can, and whatever value we want to route to. So this is one way. Then the health checks we can configure is we can create the health check at which endpoint, for which IP address we can which create the health checks for the particular, so that if that particular endpoint is not healthy, it should, we can also create the failover routing also. Okay. Then we can register the domain as well, which we can see in the dashboard itself. We can register the domain or transfer existing domain like this. And traffic management is basically a visual tool that lets you easily create policies for multiple endpoint complex configuration. And it can, we can give assigned weights and all. That's all for today's video. I hope it's helpful. Please let me know views in the comment section. Till then, take care. Bye.